This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. Welcome in, everybody, on For the Fans Network. Thank you for finding us. However you did, we're very surprised, but glad that you're here. If you weren't as lucky as someone who stumbled upon this during its live airing on what we assume is Thursday at noon, thanks for checking us out at ftfnext.com or as a podcast, wherever you get those, or maybe we can be in your YouTube feed. Whatever you did to watch us or listen to us right now, you can do every single week. We do this every week without fail, Kayse Strudler, because we are, as we've mentioned on this program, now 69 episodes deep. Very nice. We are the Cal Ripken of sports media. We don't take a week off ever for any reason.
No, there's no reason to anyway. There's no reason to. We feel obligated to you. You feel obligated to us. This is a family. We will never walk away from this show. And so this is, there's been a lot of conversations about athletes maybe taking a step away from the action. We'll never take a step away from the action.
He's Kayse Strudler, director of the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. My name is Geoff Brault. We are two white men, which mean that Kayse Strudler, we must have a take on Simone Biles. So that is where we will begin this episode, an Olympic heavy episode, but that's not all that we have for you. Oh, no. We're going to talk about Kanye West living in the basement of an NFL stadium. And we're going to talk about conference realignment, plus bring back one of our favorite segments from shows past. We're going to do some Mad Libs later in the episode, so you definitely want to make sure that you stay tuned for that. But first, Kayse Strudler, Simone Biles, the face of the Olympiad.
By the way, you just threw that in there. You just threw that in like that's a normal thing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Jimmy Fallon took it from us, right? We had an old radio show. This is back maybe 6-7 years ago. And when Kobe Bryant retired from the NBA, he penned that open letter. We Mad Libbed it. We took out some words, we replaced them with other words, and we're like, this is what we would do if we did this like a Mad Lib.
And it changed. Literally changed the nature of entertainment. So much so that one of the major late night talk shows copied. I mean, we literally changed the face of entertainment. And so we were there first, and we're going to bring it back. But you said it very, very blasé, like this. This is like it's like, oh, we're going to go out, we're going to slaughter a cow, we're going to come back.
I didn't want to a couple houses. People. Look, we're going to do it at the end of the show, so you have to make it through the whole thing. You have to slog through with us if you want your Mad Lib reward at the end. And I didn't want to get people too high too early.
Or on demand, you could just move your cursor forward. We get the number either way. We get the click either way.
If there's one thing we don't need from our audience, it's for them to be higher than they are currently. We have data that shows that they are plenty high on their own. They don't need our help. Now, Simone Biles. Yes. She gets high in a different way by flipping off the ground. Yes. How about that segue, right? Launching herself into the air and doing flips. Except she wasn't doing that so much this week because she backed away from the Olympic team and individual all-around competitions, citing the need for a mental health break. This has come up quite a bit in sports recently, with Naomi Osaka famously doing it at the French Open and then later again in Wimbledon. And it seems like every time it happens, which is now twice, everyone has to have an opinion on it. So, Kayse Strudler, it's now time for yours.
So, look, here's my take on this. First of all, I think the Naomi Osaka and the Simone Biles situations are very different. I also would like to point out that you may be responsible for this. Several episodes ago, you decided to bring to this program that we needed to talk about the fact that Simone Biles is the best at you literally, you didn't just say she's the best gymnast.
I still think it's true. And I actually think that played into this situation, which we'll get to when it's time for my opinion. But this is your time for an opinion.
So here's my take. All right. My take is this. People have decided, because this is what we like to do, to go in the binomials of this is what athletes do. They must push forward, or how dare anyone question, we should do more of this. Athletes should just decide whenever they feel like they want to take a break, they should take a break. And of course, then they tried to compare it to what would happen if LeBron James, because LeBron James seems to be the gold standard to compare anything to in any walk of life. Here's my take. This is nothing more and nothing less than what it is. You had an athlete who was the most propped up athlete close to in the history of the game. She was on that verge. And by the way, an Olympics that is teetering on the edge, right? That's about to drag an American network down with it, right? And so she was the savior of the games. I believe the only person I can think of that would have experienced the same level of kind of stress and scrutiny would be Michael Phelps, and this nearly killed him, and he'll admit it all along, right? And so we know that this was a highly stressful situation for her. She said as much. By the way, in a completely unforgiving sport, this is not basketball where you just at 25, you're a senior citizen, right? And it beats the hell out of you. She said very publicly last year that she was hanging on just to make it to 2020. And despite the fact that they're calling this the 2020 games, it's 2021.
Math checks out. Yeah.
When they delayed the games, and this has been very public, she went to her coach and said, I don't know. I don't know that I can handle this any longer. My body's breaking down. The stress is too much. Coach said, take a few months off. And I am sure that they and Simone Biles, handlers and people and marketing folks said, there's millions of dollars on the table here. And by the way, if you are as good as she is and the greatest in the history of gymnastics, you cannot walk away. You can't do it. So she came back. She went against what I'm sure was every instinct in her DNA, which is like, I'm done. And every athlete knows when they're done. She was done. She gave it her best try. And at some point, it was too much. And I don't think it's anything more than that. She got to the point where a year ago, it was too much. And when you get to a point, and I don't think this is the fear of losing. I don't think this is the fear. This is, I don't have it in me. And if I do it wrong, I could kill myself out there. And I think it's as simple as that. I think this is not for the attention. This is not to prove a point. She was overwhelmed, understandably. And remember, the difference between now and when Michael Phelps was doing it was Michael Phelps did it when the social media machine was half of what it is right now. I think it was an inescapable. I'm not saying that people couldn't do it. And I wish Simone Biles had been able to do it. But I don't think it's any more or any less than there was an overwhelming amount of stress. It was too much, and she evaluated the risk reward, and she literally gave away millions of dollars because she said, I could really hurt myself.
When you look at the complete picture of who Simone Biles is in the moment that Simone Biles is in, and you try to calculate in your mind what that pressure might be like, right? There's an awful lot of people out there with the take of quitter, couldn't hack it, gave up, left the team. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. You kept using the name Michael Phelps, which I think is the only other athlete of certainly the social media era, but maybe of all time, like maybe going back to Babe Ruth, who is active and at the same time considered the best of all time, which raises the bar to such a level that not only winning is no longer the standard, right? If Simone Biles won gold, everybody would be like, expectation. If Simone Biles,
she had the best performance in the opening round, and everyone was like, what a disappointment.
Exactly.
How about that bar?
The bar for her was not only must you must win while doing something that no one in the history of your sport has ever done.
Yeah. And newsflash, gymnastics not new, not a new sport. This is not skateboarding.
That pressure alone exceeds anything that I can fathom and anything I think any athlete has faced except for Michael Phelps. And we all saw how it affected Michael Phelps when his Olympic career ended. Then you add on top of that the situation that is the Tokyo Olympics, right? In a normal Olympics, you can go and mingle with other athletes. You can go and attend other events. You can have your friends and family in town and go to dinner with them and get away from your sport. You have so many things that you can do to live. You can go to a convenience store and get and then lose all your money and then tell everyone that you were robbed at knife point. You can do that. All are options. Simone Biles has none of that in this quarantine bubble that they're in. So what do humans do when they're basically trapped with nothing else to do? Think about what you do when you've got 30 minutes to kill. You get on your phone and you start reading stuff and you just start mindlessly scrolling and you see your name and you see the expectations that are attached to that, and it builds and it builds and it builds, and you have no outlet. You have no one to be physically present with you in this insane moment that none of the people that are commenting about have any idea what this is like. I mean, there are athletes that have reached the highest level in their sport that cannot comprehend what this is like because it's such rarefied air that she is in. I think it's, the fact that she even gave it a try, right, is, a lot of people are throwing around the word heroic, and I don't know if it's heroic what she did. I think it's, it's certainly self-preservation, and I'm glad that she felt confident and comfortable to make the decision so she didn't go and hurt herself. But, it to me is, when you try to comprehend the pressure cooker, right, I can't wrap my head around it. It's just not something that anyone but maybe one other athlete has ever faced.
Yeah, I think you contextualize that correctly. I think you're right. It's not that she's a hero and she did something so brave. It's not that she did something horrible either, because she represented the country and she took someone else's spot and blah, blah. Neither of those binomials fit. What happened is she gave it her best shot. This is an unimaginable amount of stress. And yes, maybe someone else might have been able to make it. Yes, Michael Phelps made it. Michael Phelps also had some spills along the way, right? And swimming's a different sport than gymnastics as well. And I don't want to get into the gender differences. They're different sports, right? Regardless, to take a stand other than, hey, that sucks. To me, and by the way, the other thing that gets lost is Simone Biles is not a corporation. She's not a brand. She's a human being that has human frailty. Right? Pros and cons, no matter how inflappable she appears to be. She is a human being. The hot take here should be, that sucks for Simone Biles because, she missed out on something, right? She worked her ass off. Like, think about how hard. I mean, gymnastics is not a fun sport. It is a brutal, unforgiving sport. Think about how, and again, not to compare to Naomi Osaka, there's another tennis tournament every week. Like you skip a major, you come back to another major. You're an Olympic gymnast. This is it. And so I think the only take is, well, that sucks for her. She worked hard. She deserved it. And it sucks for her.
Yeah, the outrage machine obviously had to get turned up and everyone had to give their opinion. And I didn't see a lot of sort of this down the middle take, right? It seemed like she was either a quitter who's a traitor to her country, or she should be exalted as the greatest hero in the history of the public arena. And I'm with you. I mean, to me, it lies somewhere in the middle. And I also think that all these people who think that athletes owe them something in either direction, right? Competing, not competing, living up to their ideals or not living up to their ideals. Yeah, I've never been a fan of those people, right? Who's like, well, I wouldn't have done it that way if I had the chance. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't have the chance because you didn't win the genetic lottery, dedicate your entire life to training 8 hours a day to learn this niche skill, beat out everyone else who was also doing the same thing, and then be put in the position to have this pressure put on you. So honestly, I don't really care what your opinion is, nor should anyone care what our opinions are. I just think it's important.
Oh, no, wait, hold on. By the way, I think what we should do for every one of these people who is, a keyboard warrior and is, inflammatory on social, I think what we should force them to do is go to the Olympic Diving Center and force them to jump off the high one. Have you ever walked the ones where you have to take an elevator up to the top? Like, I think just to give them a sense, because gymnastics is very similar to diving, kind of in constitution and fearlessness, just to give them a sense of what these people put themselves through. Like, there are certain sports where the imminent fear of death is always right there. Cycling being one of them, gymnastics. I mean, it's right there.
So this does bring me to my next point that I want to discuss about the Olympics. And that is, if the number one thing that you saw on social media over the last week was an opinion about Simone Biles, the number two thing that you saw was a meme going around saying that every Olympic event should have a regular person competing in it as a marker. As in just a regular Joe getting up on the high dive and do what they do, so that when you see these people doing tumbles off the high dive, you can finally recognize that, oh, wow, these people really are elite athletes, the likes of whom my brain cannot comprehend. So, Kayse Strudler, if you were to be the marker in an Olympic sport, the regular Joe, if you will, of any event, you could pick any event in the entire Olympics, what do you think you would pick?
I can tell you what I wouldn't pick. That's ski jumping.
Sure, he went to the Winter Olympics. I wouldn't pick most Winter Olympic events.
Winter Olympic sports, they're cold, they're deadly. I mean, find me an Olympic sport where I wouldn't die. Curling, I suppose. I could probably. So if I were to pick, I mean, you don't want to do swimming. I mean, some of these sports I have some experience in, so I can't say track.
Yeah, but this is why I think it's actually a good question for you, because I know you are a man of a certain ego, and I think you would. I think you could trick yourself into thinking like, you know what, I'm going to shock the world. I could be competitive in this. I really think you'd be like, look, honey, I got a berth in the Olympic triathlon. Look, I might medal. Like, if I just dedicate myself to this for 3 months, like, there's a chance I sneak into bronze.
The problem with the sports that I do is the numbers never lie. I mean, the numbers never lie. So you can look at, you know exactly how fast they're going and exactly how fast you're going to go. No, I actually think you're right. I think for me, it might be worse to a sport that I did at a relatively high level, because then because again, the better you get at something, the more you realize how big the divide is between good and great and elite in world class. And so it actually is worse. Like the average Joe jogger who's never done a competitive race in their life is like, I could hang in that cycling race. Like, I'll tell you, I mean, same thing like mountain biking. The average person a quarter mile into mountain biking would be in a helicopter getting dragged to the nearest hospital. If they bother, they may just say, this is not worth. They may just be looking for the license to see if they're a kidney donor, right? Like an organ donor at that point. These things are deadly. They're really dangerous. So if I had to, I'll tell you what, at that point, you got to go like with a riflery or an archery, because at least you have a little fun. You have a little fun.
So I respect that, because I would go ping pong, table tennis if you're a purist. and that would be the one that I would.
You would do it against one of those guys?
Sure.
Oh, they'd kill it. I mean, I think it would hit them.
Of course. What do you think? I think I'd win. Although, you know what? Do you know another reason why you pick table tennis? I just learned this watching a little table tennis the other night. If it's 10-0, it's like etiquette in the sport to give one back so that the person doesn't get shut out 11-0. So I think I'd pick table tennis just because by etiquette, I think I'd get one.
I mean, there's some sports you don't even want any part of. Like you want no part. Basketball, you want no part of. You want no part.
But then again, like basketball could be fun if you get inserted onto the team. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I would think it would have to be an entire average Joe team.
Yes, it would be.
And so
yeah. You and me and Michael Wallace playing 3-on-3.
Right. I think it'd be kind of fun if you were an average Joe who was like, hey, Pop, you got this guy now at the end of the bench and you have to put him in and get a little run around like with Kevin Durant. Just stand in the corner. I'm open. Kevin, I was open.
That's the Dean Smith, like, Keith, there's a reason you're always open. They want you to shoot from there. So I don't know. The divide between the Olympians, I'll tell you right now, the one I'd want to do is surfing. They're on like 2-foot waves. They 2-foot waves unless the hurricane comes in. That's fine.
You know what looks tremendously fun? The kayak. I guess they call it canoeing, but it's clearly a kayak. When you go down the rapids and you got to go through the gates, that looks fun to do.
Yeah. You would die instantly. This is how it would go for you.
No, I assume the kayak flips back over when I tip.
Not easily.
That's risky.
You would drown because of your inability to control your body to flip back. Either that, or there would be some rock underwater that you would drag your face immediately. Like that is a sport that you might face imminent death. And by the way, you want to make that sport a little fun? There should be a waterfall somewhere on that course.
Okay. I don't know if the course is that big. Although, you know what is that big? And this has been one of the most jarring things I should say about the Olympics. The size of some of these venues, and like the canoeing venue, I think, case in point. Even if there wasn't COVID, why in the world are there 15,000 seats at this thing? Like,
Japan's Tokyo's a crowded city. It's a lot of people there. What is that, like 10 million? Japan's up there. Tokyo's up there. It's a big one. It's a monster city.
By population, I think it's second.
It's the number. What's number one? Is it somewhere in?
I think it's New Delhi.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't know that. I was going for what is it? Constantinople?
I feel like New Delhi, Beijing, and Tokyo are all kind of right around the top of most populous cities in the world.
Sure.
But the good news is, Keith Strudler, I got the keyboard here because we're doing Mad Libs later, I can find this answer out. I can find this out. What is the most populous city?
Don't. All right, while you're doing this, I want to tell you my favorite moment of the Olympics so far.
Tokyo is number one. Oh, how about me nailing it? Tokyo 1, Delhi 2, Shanghai. I said Beijing, but Shanghai is 3.
Shanghai, it sneaks up on you because Beijing gets all the credit. By the way, you think people aren't watching the Olympics now? Just wait till they have the Winter Games in Beijing like 4 hours from now, because you realize the next Olympics, if this Olympics doesn't kill the peacock, the next Olympics is definitely sure to bring it under.
Precipitous drop, by the way, at 4, where it goes from Tokyo, Delhi, Shanghai to Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course, we all knew that. I mean,
Beijing comes in at 8.
Right.
And the first American city is, of course, New York at 11.
Yeah. Thank you for doing now the worst bit of radio.
I think there are a lot of people that find that to be the only interesting part of this entire show.
But by the way, what I love doing during opening ceremonies when the countries walk out is guessing how many people live in the country. I love that. I love it because you're always surprised. Always surprised.
Yes, I don't watch the opening ceremonies. You love it so much. You watch it in Korean. And I know that was your greatest moment of the week. You demanded, Kayse Strudler, that we talk about the South Korean broadcast of the Olympic opening ceremonies. And I said, why would we do that? So now you get to answer that charge.
Well, it turns out in some countries, they don't have quite as large a staff working on the open games. I think the opening ceremonies in the U.S., for most people, they think that is the actual Olympics. Like they think that's the biggest show. And in some countries, apparently that's not such a big deal. Despite the fact that South Korea has hosted an Olympics, you'd think they'd know the drill a little bit. So whatever intern they had on this, I assume it was maybe our former intern, Rob Duffy. Perhaps Michael Wallace is working on that right now because he's not working on Sportish anymore. Whatever they wanted to put a graphic, a fact about the country, like they always do. Like Savannah Guthrie's like, oh, did you know that line dancing originated in this country? Some kind of fun fact about the favorite food. Well, it seems that whatever intern they put on it, it looked like they were trying to be ironic or onion-like. I don't think they were. I just don't think they really understood the drill. So I think they first found out that it was going awry when, Italy, when the fun fact for Italy in the graphic was pizza, which, to be fair, I'm sure people in New York were somewhat offended by. It got worse when they went to Romania and it was Count Dracula. And then it got much worse when they had the Ukraine walk out and they had a picture of Chernobyl. And I'm just thinking that at some point when the senior producer of that network was starting to sweat, realizing how awry this was going, probably got really uptight when the German national team was about to walk out.
Now look, did it go awry, or does South Korea just have a low tolerance for BS? Because Kayse, I'm going to throw it to you right now. Name something else about Ukraine.
I guess the other thing they could have put is Russian tanks, because they live in fear of being overtaken again. There's a lot of corruption there, so I guess you could have put like a Kafelnikov rifle, I suppose. Also, just as offensive. So I did find that broadcast. And by the way, the graphics look like they were done in Photoshop for like an 8th grade science project. It was great about it.
While we're on the topic of things that only Kayse Strudler wants to talk about, I had promised you that we would discuss, because for the first time in my life, I have now found cycling interesting. We would discuss the women's cycling event at the Olympics. And the reason that we're discussing it is because it was won by a total unknown, an Austrian named Anna Kiesenhofer, because the person in second place and everyone else behind her forgot that she was ahead of them. Okay. I guess they don't have communication in the Olympics. Like you can't talk to the riders and you can't say like, hey, you got somebody a kilometer up ahead. So the person in second had no idea that there was someone in first, thought that they were winning, crossed the line, thought they won gold, got, 50 yards down the asphalt, saw some Austrian girl laying on the ground, huffing and puffing, and was like, did I come in second?
Who's that?
How did they get here? Kayse Strudler, you've done cycling. How does this happen in the Olympics?
So if this were the Tour de France, where your favorite cyclist,
Tadej Pogacar.
By the way, you're butchering that name in the way.
I actually looked up the real pronunciation. I'm not butchering it that badly. I believe that it's actually Tadej Pogacar. Like I think I'm pretty close.
Pogash? I thought it was Pogash.
Pogashar?
Pogash. R.
No. I'm almost certain it ends in Shar.
But I think that might be silent. Pogash.
That's too many silent letters. No, that's on him, not me.
I think it's Taj Pogash.
No, oh come on. That's silly. That's the name of a brand that makes overalls for children.
Where you match so like your animals, you match like the dinosaur with the dinosaur. All right, so yeah, look, it's actually, and I've been in a race before once where I didn't know that one person had broken away. It was a duathlon. It was it was an elite amateur race, and it was like a national championship. And I actually didn't know when we got to the second transition, we were going back from biking to running. I thought I was in the lead pack. And it turns out there was a guy, didn't matter because I got crushed in the second run anyway, but there was a guy that had escaped on the bike and got a 2-minute lead. Obviously we weren't going to get any kind of communication at that point, but during the tour, they're all wearing earpieces, and not only like this person's ahead, they'll tell them how far, when they have to go, all that, what's their pace like, et cetera, et cetera. It can happen. Because what probably happened is someone snuck, and it's a big pack, and the leaders must not have been near the front. So whoever was in the front, who kind of probably that weren't necessarily the contenders, right? Because at that point, it could have been people who were not contenders who were leading the pack. It could be that they just, I guess they kept it a secret, but it's really weird. It's really weird that at that level, beyond that someone on the course wouldn't be like, you're in third, you're in the, like people used to do that a lot. Like, you're in third place. You need to it is very, very weird, but how great for the winner. How great for that. And by the way, worse than the person that's like, is the person that thought they snuck in for a bronze, because that's a long tumble. Like, that's a far, far tumble. So yeah, it is. Fact,
because you mentioned the bronze medal. They did that thing somewhere in the media where you learn how much each medal's worth, and a gold medal is worth, like, an actual physical, medal, it's worth like $700, and a silver medal is worth like $400. Do you want to guess how much a bronze medal is actually worth?
Probably about 15.
$7. It's worth $7. Which I feel like makes it a heck of a lot more accessible than having to go out and finish third in a world-class sport. Like, you're telling me that I can't just go get one?
$7? So now here's but this is a little disappointing. And I think I kind of knew this. The gold's that's not a pure gold situation.
No, it's
they're
actually
plating that
silver. It's like 85% silver.
But this whole, so really, if we're going to get down to it, the sweet spot is the silver medal, right? You don't have to put yourself.
If you're looking ahead to when you're going to pawn the thing in 25 years, then I guess.
In terms of it's less work. It's less work. You don't have to, you're now better off winning 2 silvers. It would always used to be the theory used to be like, how many silvers would you give up to get 1 gold, right? Sounds like no more than 1, because once you get to your second, you already crossed the threshold. You're already in a value proposition.
While the whole sports world is focused on Tokyo and the Olympics, nothing is going on here stateside, proven by the fact that Kanye West has moved into Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. There is so little going on in American sports right now that Kanye West is finishing his album Donda from the basement of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the Atlanta Falcons play. Kayse Strudler, I think this is proven that we need to keep a closer watch on the homeland while we are out focused on our overseas affairs in Japan.
So I've learned about this whole thing piecemeal from my 13-year-old. 13-year-olds, as some of you know, talk in incoherent they just talk sentence at a time. and say things that either are indecipherable or don't make any sense. And so first he goes, Kanye's album's going to drop tonight. That was the big thing. And it was the biggest thing ever. And then like 12 hours later, he goes, yeah, the album didn't drop. And I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, I don't know. And then he starts naming other rappers who were supposed to have been on the album. And so now I'm very confused. Right. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe there's a problem with Sloan. Maybe he's wacky. Like maybe I need to take him. So he's something. I'm like, well, Kanye's somewhat eccentric. This is not the first strange thing he's done. So I'm like, well, he told people he was going to drop the album. It didn't drop. And now their publicists are coming up. And then the next day he goes, yeah, Kanye's finishing it really fast. He's doing it while he's living in the Atlanta Falcon Stadium. And then I was like, son, you need to stop taking drugs.
Son, you have to do one of two things: stop taking drugs or continue taking the same amount of drugs and become a regular viewer of Sportish. That is the only path forward for you.
There's no in between. So I don't even understand this. He's like, no, he's living in an apartment. Now, we both know, we thought the only resident of a stadium was that guy who built the secret apartment in Philadelphia.
Right.
So I don't think, but he wasn't a record magnate. I mean, as far as I know, he just was hanging out in the what if he should, this is what he should do. Whoever that guy is should come out and be like, tomorrow I'm dropping my album. I don't understand how does this happen?
There's a real concern here, Keith, and I am not making, this is not a joke, but it is often that the SEC championship game, the college football battle, is contested in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Absolutely.
What if Kanye is still there, Keith, in 2025 when Texas and Oklahoma are playing for the SEC championship inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium? That is an issue that no one is talking about, and quite frankly, I think they should be.
Well, so you're proposing that A, Texas and Oklahoma will not be in the same side of the ledger in the SEC, so they will. So that's A. B, we're now going to have 2 Red River games per year. Is that what you're suggesting? This is nice. This is nice. Now it's going to be nice. I know we're going to be talking about this later. Oklahoma has the opportunity to lose to Alabama before we get to the college football playoffs.
Yeah. And by later, we're going to talk about it right now because Keith Strudler, you were telling me that, I thought, oh, whatever, Texas and Oklahoma are going to leave the Big 12 and go to the SEC. I'm like, fine, Coventry alignment happens every day.
You said it wasn't going to happen. You said it's too expensive. You said it was too expensive.
Well, I think that's why it's happening in 2025 and not immediately. But I was like, all right. I mean, I don't understand what the big deal is. And you have told me as a son of the South, this is a huge deal, huge deal.
And I believe my first comment to you before I looked up anything when we discussed it, I said, oh, it's happening because I got a tweet, Texas, Oklahoma plan to leave. And the first thing that came to my mind is, Oklahoma State is going to be pissed. That's because these states the state legislatures almost mandate they stick together. And this is, look, when A&M left the Big 12 for the SEC, that was a form of treason, but they did it because they were so offended that Texas went and started their own network without including A&M. I mean, these kind of, these signature universities are supposed to stick together. And there is nothing that could offend Oklahoma State more than being left aside by Oklahoma.
Well, as evidenced by Oklahoma State University President Kayse Shrum, who's relatively new to that position, who is now making her mark by just making incendiary statements about the University of Oklahoma literally every single day in every platform that she can get that out in. Her initial statement, Keith, that she released was fine. I mean, obviously, it was very critical of Oklahoma, but look, it wasn't as good as it could have been. Yeah. So we here at Sportish are now going to take it upon ourselves to improve that statement, but not by starting from scratch. No, by taking what she already released and Mad Libbing it up a little bit so that it's improved. So now get ready, everyone at home, however you're listening or watching this program, for what should be the best 5 minutes in the history of television/radio, where Keith Strudler just gives us random words that we will then insert into President Shrum's statement condemning Oklahoma for leaving the Big 12. All right, everybody knows how Mad Libs work, and then we're going to read the thing out loud, and it'll hopefully be funny. We'll see. It also might not be. It all comes down to the words that Keith Strudler is about to give us. And do please excuse me while I go to my handy-dandy keyboard here to put these new words right into the statement. So, all right.
I like the way every time you hold that up, you also have the added balance of white balancing. Your camera.
Well, you can blame Steve Jobs for that one. All right, Kayse Strudler, I need a verb ending in ing, please.
Licking.
We're off to a hot start. A noun, please.
Frankfurter.
Wow. It's already gold. An adjective, please.
Smelly.
A thing, please.
A thing, not a noun, but a thing.
A thing. Yeah, it has to be a little more specific than a noun. Time is a bit of the essence.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it good. Lawnmower. Lawnmower.
Okay. A year. I need a year. Could be past, present, or future.
2001.
Okay.
No, I'll take that. Is that set in stone?
You can take it back.
1776.
Okay. Very American of you. It is July. An adjective, please.
Frightening.
Another adjective, please.
I've already used hairy. That was Harry. Harry is where I'm going to go.
Okay.
I've done smelly.
A unit of time.
Unit of time. How about a fortnight?
Okay. Another adjective.
Oh boy, you're really stretching me now.
3 adjectives for a man with 3 college degrees, most of them in this discipline.
I don't have a degree in grammar, syntax. Would-like.
Would-like. Okay.
You know how I do this.
Autocorrect isn't certain that's a word.
You know what I do? I see. You know why I said that? Because I looked at that and there's a wood table.
Sure. Name of organization.
The Daughters of the American Revolution.
Well, there's a lot of typing.
I had to dig deep for that one.
Okay. I need another unit of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You think I'm kidding?
Fortnite's the best one. I mean, that's a good an eon.
Okay. Next up is a verb not ending in ing.
Vomit.
All right. Verb ending in ing.
Caressing.
All right. No, how about a third unit of time? Hit me again, Sam.
This is really tough.
Yeah, it's real tough. I mean, you could say 2 seconds. That would be a unit of time.
No, that's no. I will say a parsec.
Okay.
Technically not a unit of time.
I believe that's a measurement of distance from Star Wars. Yes. An adjective, please. Fun fact.
God.
Fun fact. Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, the only pilot ship to complete the Kessel Run in under 9 parsecs. There's a very, very small slice of our audience that thought that was the best thing that's ever been said on the show. An adjective.
An adjective. Greedy.
Okay,
that might actually work.
Very apropos. An occupation plural, like construction workers.
Let's see. Construction worker is a good one. I don't want to use it though.
Sure, because I just said it.
What's a job that I'd always want? Tennis players.
All right.
We got to be closing in on this.
Verb not ending in ing.
Eat.
All right. Adjective.
Okay. Hot.
Another adjective.
Insane.
Insane. All right. These last two should be awfully easy for you. Thing at a college.
A thing at a college?
Thing at a college.
Fraternity.
Another thing at a college.
Another thing at a college. Parking garage. We've got to be wrapping this up soon.
That was the last one. That was the last one. So thank you for bearing with us, people, through what is the most riveting.
Emmy committee, we appreciate your time.
Thank you for your consideration. Now the payoff. This is Keith Strudler's version of Oklahoma State University President Kayse Shrum's statement condemning the University of Oklahoma for considering leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Earlier today, Oklahoma University, licking a Frankfurter to the Big 12 conference office, indicated they will not renew their grant of smelly lawnmower with the Big 12 following the 1776 season. This action was frightening, hairy, and results from a fortnight of planning with the SEC. These conversations, which developed over a wood-like period, are a clear breach of the Daughters of the American Revolution bylaws and broke from the eons bond of trust between our university. It is difficult to understand how an Oklahoma institution of higher education would vomit the University of Texas to the detriment of the state of Oklahoma. The statement continues. Again, this is the Mad Lib version of Oklahoma State University President Kayse Shrum's letter condemning the University of Oklahoma for following Texas to the SEC, where they will potentially play college football beginning in 2025. Nevertheless, we are caressing to the future and what I believe is best for Oklahoma State University. Over the last parsec, I have received greedy phone calls, texts, and emails from tennis players and members of the Cowboy family showing their support for OSU as we eat the road ahead. Regardless of what comes next, Oklahoma State University is dedicated to the state of Oklahoma. We remain hot that OSU is in the strongest position ever, and I am insane about the future of Oklahoma State University, our fraternities, parking garages, and top-notch athletic programs. End statement. So there you go, Keith Strudler. Oklahoma, according to Oklahoma State University President Kayse Shrum, in clear violation of the Daughters of the American Revolution bylaws as they try to take their talents to the SEC in 4 years' time.
Oh, my God. Those Mad Libs get me every time. But what makes it funny is we took a real statement. It's not just a book.
Yeah, thanks for explaining the joke to people at home. Yeah. By the way, Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
We know we were first. You know we were first.
Yeah.
Give it up.
Have us on. How about this? Have us on. Do us a solid. We'll talk it out, and we'll talk about Sportish. How great would that be? Like, next up from Sportish. Like we're Mike and Mike.
Here's the sad part about you and I. We wouldn't want like royalties. We just want credit. Like,
yeah.
Like, oh yeah, one of our writers got this idea because they were driving through Poughkeepsie some Saturday, and they heard on the radio these idiots laughing about making fun of Kobe Bryant's retirement statement and thought, oh, wouldn't that be funny to do with John Cena? That's all we want. That's all we
literally.
want.
Literally.
Maybe a nice Tonight Show mug.
I would say a mug. I said we shouldn't sell. Let's start with, we've got to give ourselves something to negotiate. So we'd like a mug and a t-shirt. We'll settle for just the mug, obviously, but we want to go. want to put our best foot forward. So we will, I guess, we'll post that on social. We'll post that on Twitter, our version of the letter. So you'll be able to know.
Will we?
I mean, it requires.
Don't make promises that we can't keep.
It requires you to literally do one thing, which is hit save and send. Right? That's about it.
But it's too many characters. It's not going to make any sense. We'll have to do some sort of like Notes app screenshot.
Yes, we can do that.
We'll see.
So it's great. That is a great one. It went better than I expected it to. It went better.
When you had sent it to me and said, "Wouldn't this make a good Mad Lib?" I read it and I thought, "Oh yes, it would."
I literally did not read because I saw that there was a statement. I read the first two words and I said, "Hold on, this is a Mad Lib." Like, you know it. It's kind of like when you're a coach and you see a kid like who's kicking a soccer ball and you're like, "Hold on, that is a star." I saw what I was starting to see and I said, "Hold on, this is a Mad Lib." They're leaving, by the way. They are leaving this. Like, it's gonna now. Maybe college football may fall apart before that, but I don't think they're gonna let them get to 20. I mean, these things have a way of working. This is kind of like when they start the divorce proceedings and you're like, you don't live well, except for that guy from Cleveland we interviewed a couple of times who lived with his ex-wife just to make himself more miserable. The guy from Cleveland Sports Torture. Everyone else, I can't imagine. Can you imagine the animos with these teams playing, knowing that they're leaving? I mean, and by the way, especially if Texas and Oklahoma are winning the conference, like, you have to believe that there's going to have to be some way out of this before. And apparently there's no amount of money that Texas won't spend on sports. So I don't know.
You're probably right. At a certain point, it becomes untenable to have a team that's leaving your conference win your conference every year.
You know when it's going to get the most uncomfortable when Texas brings their new girlfriend back home to the Big 12 and they're all in the same house, technically divorced or separated at least. That's uncomfortable. I think that's what does it.
God, that Mad Lib was, I mean, I thought, look, you started off strong with licking and Frankfurter. I thought it was going to continue that vein. You got a little timid there in the middle. You got a little, there was somewhere I was like, it kind of fits.
Yeah. I nailed it at the end though. I nailed it at the end with parking garage and fraternities. I nailed it.
Yeah. For good tennis players was good too. Yeah. But Daughters of the American Revolution, that was the best. I
dug deep. Yeah.
All right, what an episode of Sportish we had for you today. Whether you're watching on For the Fans, whether you caught it as a replay on ftfnext.com, whether you stumbled upon it on your YouTube Discover page, or you listen to us as a podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast, we thank you for coming along, and we hope you do it again next week. He's Keith. I'm Jeff. We'll see you.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.